Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Poole, and my guest today is Scott Ritter, and Scott is going to talk about his trip to Russia. So, welcome back. You went there probably at the coldest time of the year, didn't you?
Well, that was one of the reasons behind this trip is to refamiliarize myself with the legendary Russian winter, but also to see Moscow and St. Petersburg, during the winter, during New Year's, during Christmas, to see how they celebrate these holidays and to see how they light the cities. So yeah, no, winter was a very important aspect of this trip.
So, it must have been like a page out of Dr. Zhivago, right?
Um, eh, in some ways, there were aspects of the trip. That was that way. But Moscow is and St. Petersburg are both extraordinarily modern cities. So you know the holiday decorations were very prevalent, and I don't think Dr. Zhivago could have matched what the mayors of Moscow and St. Petersburg were able to do with their respective cities.
And did you take pictures or videos or, anything for posterity?
Of course I did. I recorded as much of this trip as possible, just to try and capture it. Later on, when I seek to write about it, I'll look at the photographs, and it helps, you know, revive memories, so that the writing is fresh.
So, you're still working on your film, right?
Yes, and I think part of this trip will be incorporated into the film. It was an important epilogue, I guess, to the theme, the narrative that I was putting together for the film.
So, how many cities did you go to?
Well, I mean, this trip was initially just supposed to be two, just Moscow and St. Petersburg, but as the trip got underway, the Chechens, the government of Chechnya, invited me back to Grozny, um, and I took advantage of it, where I continued to immerse myself in the history and the culture of the Chechen people, the Chechen Republic, and had a unique opportunity to meet Ramzan Kadyrov, the head of the Chechen Republic, and I don't know if you're aware of it, but I gave a speech in the Russian language to 25,000 Chechen soldiers who were assembled just for that purpose. So it was a unique, to call it unique is not proper, because it's more than unique. It was literally a once in a lifetime opportunity, not just for me, but I mean, I don't think it's ever been done before. So it was awe-inspiring to be able to participate in something like that.
So, did you ever give a speech in Russian before?
Cynthia, as you know, and as I've said, I don't speak Russian very well. I can communicate in Russian, but I never claimed to be fluent in the language. And the way this happened is, we were invited to lunch. My daughter, um, Alexander Zuryanov, my host, his fiance Olga, and just as a footnote, when we celebrated New Year's in Moscow, Alexander proposed to her that night in front of us, and we got to be a witness to this. So it was a wonderful um, occasion for him, for her, for us, for everybody. So we went to this lunch meeting with Ramzan Kadyrov, who is the head of the Chechen Republic, and we had a very expansive conversation. Um, and halfway through, just to set it right, driving to the presidential palace, or I guess it's the head of the Chechen Republic. They don't call it the president anymore because there's only one president in Russia, and that's Vladimir Putin. So driving there through the streets of Grozny, the streets are just a normal city streets, traffic, people walking, pedestrians. You didn't sense anything out of the normal. We arrive at the presidential palace, and as we walk up to the building where we're going to have lunch, I see a giant white wolf, literally a giant white wolf, jumping up and being fed by somebody. That was Ramzan Kadyrov, and that's his pet white wolf. The wolf is, of course, the national symbol of Chechnya, and he was um, putting the national symbol on display for his guests. it was a big wolf. I mean, if you've seen Game of Thrones, um, you know that they had the very large wolves in the Game of Thrones. Well, this was a very large wolf, something that could have been out of central casting. It wasn't your small, scrawny wolf that you see running across the film and like Dances with Wolves. This was a giant white wolf. And anyways, he invites us into his home, and we sit down and we have this wonderful lunch, and we're talking, having very, I mean, these aren't trivial conversations. We're talking about the conflict in Ukraine. We're talking about Chechen's role in Russian recovery in the Ukrainian conflict, what Chechnya can do for peace in Georgia, things of this nature. And halfway through, you see all of a sudden Ramzan Kadyrov gets this little twinkle in his eyes, and he goes, "Hey, you want to go talk to the soldiers?" And when I was there in May, you may have seen the video where I inspected 2,000 of the Chechen guards, and they were assembled there, the Presidential Guard. So I'm thinking, well, I guess we're going to get a repeat of that. Why not? It was a thrill to be able to shake the hands of the battalion commanders, these warriors, to hear their stories. So I'm like, sure, I'll do that. And he goes, all right. And so we talk a little bit more, and finally goes, let's go. So we get up and we go out the back door. And as soon as the door opens up, you realize that something's wrong because there are soldiers everywhere lined up. And as far as you can see, now there were trees and bushes there, so I could just see the soldiers packed in. And I'm like, wow, this is weird. He brought them all the way to the house. But as we walk and we make the corner, you see the rolling grounds of the presidential palace, rolling hills. Soldiers cover everything, everything. They're everywhere. And as we walk, they part like Moses parting the Red Sea. And we walk through this sea of soldiers, 25,000 of them, um,
Wow.
who had assembled while we are eating lunch. And they assembled by coming out of their homes, out of their cars. They were mobilized and they put on their combat gear. They have their weapons and they marched through the city of Grozny and converged on the presidential palace while we were eating lunch. 25,000 of them. And so we show up at the main presidential palace area, and Kadyrov gives a speech to them, speaking to 25,000 guys. And I'm just sitting there looking at 25,000 troops going, holy cow. The first thing that went through my mind is they all have weapons, and every one of those weapons have ammunition in them. Now think about that, because American presidents, when they meet American troops, the American troops don't have ammunition. The Secret Service comes out and removes all the ammunition because we're paranoid about somebody wanting to shoot the president. Rightfully so. I mean, I'm not because people want to, but it's good to protect the president. Ramzan Kadyrov, whom everybody in the West says is hated, he's a dictator, a brutal this, brutal that. There's 25,000 guys with machine guns with bullets in them, with rifles with bullets in them, grenades, everything there. And he's not afraid because they love him. So he's given this speech, and then he turns to me and he says, Scott, come up and speak to the troops. And I'm like, no, I don't wanna, I don't want to do this. This is I mean, it's sort of intimidating. But here's the head of the Chechen Republic. It's your moment. And so Olga, the fiance of Alexander Zyryanov, she speaks English, very good English. And so Alexander says she'll translate for you, because I'm sitting here, how do I speak to these guys? I don't speak Russian. And as we're walking up, she's like, her mouth is saying, please speak in short sentences, simple words. I'll do my best. Her eyes are saying, don't make me do this. I don't want to do this. She was scared to death. I was scared to death. And we're walking up there, and I look out and I see 25,000 soldiers staring right at me. And the Marine in me went, go big or go home. And so I said, I got this. And I strode up to the microphone and I took charge, and I issued the best damn speech I've ever given in my life in a foreign language. Of course, it's the only speech I've ever given in my life in a foreign language. Um, but it worked. Apparently, the Russian people who heard it said you did okay. The Chechens liked it. But it was literally one of those moments where if you look at the film, I look very confident. I'm speaking confidently. Inside, my heart is in my throat. I'm scared to death because I have no clue what I'm about to say. I didn't prepare for it. I don't speak Russian very well. So I'm trying to come up with sentences to convey a thought that contain words that I know. And it was grammatically incorrect. I butchered the language, but we got through it. So that was a moment I'll never forget. Cynthia, I can't. I'll send you a photograph. The literal sea of soldiers beyond the sight. It was something that straight out of a movie.
So what was your speech about?
Peace, hope, not an
Okay.
end to the conflict, respecting them as warriors, respecting their mission, but hoping for the day when they can come home and return to their families, put down their guns, and get on to the business of raising their families. So that was the basic tenor of the speech.
So they celebrate Christmas on January 6th, right?
The um, one of the reasons why I went to Russia during this time period is that there's two big holidays that are celebrated. One is New Year's. That's their big day. That's their version of the Western Christmas. What we do on December 25th, they do on New Year's. They have the tree, they have the gifts, the families get together, and that their Christmas is celebrated using the old calendar, and so it's on January 6th and 7th, that night, Christmas Eve. 7th was was Christmas Day. Um, this is more religious. This is more about the faith. This is about the birth of Christ. This is a religious event. And it's something that is lacking in the over commercialization in the West. In the West, we've over commercialized Christmas and we tend to forget what it's really about: celebration of the birth of uh, Jesus, who later became Jesus Christ. Um, and I know there's people out there, it didn't really happen on date. I don't care. I'm just saying that from a religious perspective, Christmas is about the birth of Jesus. Um, and for the Russian Orthodox, that's what they do. We had the opportunity to go to the biggest cathedral in Moscow, and watch Kirill, the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox faith, do the. I was corrected. I called it a mass. They don't do a mass. But he did a celebration um, where they celebrated Christmas and the pageantry, the music, and then watching the best part about it wasn't just the beauty and the pageantry of it, but watching the sincerity in the eyes of the assembled faithful. These are believers. These are people that define themselves as Orthodox Christians, and they were there in Moscow celebrating this very important holiday. And if you didn't see that, and I just make the distinction. I know there's some devout people in America who view Christmas as a religious holiday, but most Americans, we've commercialized it. We've turned it into shopping, buying gifts,
Hmm.
ho, 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 Grinch, all this kind of stuff. And we forgot the basic lesson that as Christians, this is celebrating the birth of the the man, the child who came on to be Jesus, who then moved on to be, Christ. We lost touch with that. The Russians haven't. The Russians are a nation of faith, and they're true to their faith, and not just their Christian faith. Again, going back to the trip to Grozny, they took me to the Shali Mosque, which is this beautiful mosque that they built, and I was given a tour of it. We were given a tour of it by the Grand Mufti, the head of the faith for Chechnya. He explained, the the Chechens are Sunni Islam, but they practice a mystical version of it known as Sufism. And it's a very peaceful religion. I mean, the Chechens have a reputation, well deserved, of being warriors. Um, but their religion isn't a religion of violence. Their religion's a religion of peace. And he explained it to it, and you see the Chechens living that out. You see them living together with Russians today. In 2002, Grozny was leveled. It looked like Stalingrad, bombed into oblivion. Today, as you drive into Grozny at night, it looks like you're going into Las Vegas. The lights are everywhere, the buildings well lit, broad streets, peaceful people, Russians and Chechens living together in peace and harmony. I call it the Chechen miracle, what has happened. But the Chechens take their religion seriously, the
Mhm.
Islamic faith. And there's no conflict between the Christians and the Muslims in Russia, um, because there's this sense of respect. Um, you know, the Russian Slavic people define themselves as Orthodox Christians, but they're part of a Russian nation that includes people of many faiths, and the Islamic faith is one of them. The way Islam is practiced in Chechnya, the way it's practiced in the Tatarstan and Bashkiria and elsewhere, where the Buryats have their own faith. The Russians respect the cultural identity, the religious identity of the people that constitute the Russian Federation. And you have to witness it firsthand to understand it, to see the devout nature of the Russian people when it comes to their Orthodox Christianity, but also to see how they are willing and able to live in peace and harmony with people of different religions. Um, in the United States, we give short shrift to this. We don't recognize this. This is a huge reality of modern Russia.
Hmm. So, you know, you're in the process of doing the movie. How did this latest trip, how does it relate to the movie that you're making?
Well, it helps bring closure to a couple things because I got to do something that was quite unique. And then you asked where I went. Well, in addition to going to Grozny, I returned to Crimea, and then I had the opportunity to go to Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Lugansk, the four new republics. I went to, this is a war zone, so it was a tricky trip. But I got to go there, meet with people, talk to people, experience the reality of that. Um, I speak of this trip as almost like an epilogue of 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 the movie, the sort of the closing chapter of it. I don't know what I'll call it. I think I'm going to steal from George C. Martin, a song of ice and fire. To invoke the winter imagery of Christmas and New Year's, but fire, the war, the conflict, and how it defines and shapes Russia. And if when you speak of, you know, trying to discover the Russian soul, um, I think the insights I got on this trip into uh, the spirituality of the Russian people through Christmas, through New Year's, um, and the resilience and determination of Russia in the face of adversity through the war. I think "A Song of Ice and Fire" is probably a good title for the last chapter of my book, and for how we're going to incorporate this into the movie, because it allows me to put a punctuation mark at the end of the search for the Russian soul. I'm not going to claim that I have captured it perfectly, but I can say that the May trip exposed me to the Russian soul. I got a deep understanding, but I was left with unresolved issues. Those issues have been resolved because of this trip, because of the closure that was brought to bear regarding, um, again, the spirituality. You have to experience Russia in winter during this holiday season to understand the Russian people, just like you have to experience Victory Day in May to understand the Russian people. You have to see how this impacts him. You can't just read about it. You can't watch somebody else talk about it. You have to be there. You have to feel it. You have to experience it. It's visceral, coming from the people to you. You absorb this energy from them. And this trip allowed me to do that. So I feel much more confident in my ability to articulate at least my interpretation of the Russian soul.
I'm sure you get into many conversations about the Ukraine, right?
Well, I mean, again, going through these four territories, it's all about Ukraine. Talking, going to Crimea, it's all about Ukraine. The war dominates everything. So of course, I had numerous conversations with both political figures, military figures, and the average Russian citizen about this conflict.
So do do these people know what the mass media in America is projecting to Americans?
They are the Russian people are some of the most informed people on the planet about these issues. In America we mock them. They don't have public. They don't have toilets. They don't have running water. They have everything. They also have the internet. And while the Russian government, um, does block certain content on the internet, there's this thing called a VPN, um, which every Russian citizen has mastered, and they all have the virtual private network or whatever it's called. And they can watch everything, and they do watch everything. They are aware of everything that's being said in the West about Russia, and it entertains them because it's just so stupid. I mean, literally, it's just but it also dismays them because they don't understand what is the source of all this ignorance. Because it's not just getting it wrong. It's not just about a minor misinterpretation of data. This is just outright ignorance about what Russia is, who the Russians are, what Russia wants. Um, and they're dismayed by it because it's not accidental. It's not just a reflection of stupidity or a lack of knowledge. It's deliberate. This is a deliberate effort by people who know better to misconstrue, to misrepresent the Russian reality. And it is dismaying to the Russians that the West would do this because we're talking about war. We're talking about the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, the displacement of tens of millions of people, the wasting of trillions of dollars of resources, um, all for a lie that's being promulgated by the West, and the West knows it's a lie. That's the saddest part. You
Right.
can't sit here in the West and say, no, what we're saying is the truth. The West knows they're lying. I mean, I engage in these stupid Twitter wars with these so-called intellectuals in America. Um, and they know what they're saying is wrong, that it's a lie. But they're deliberately doing it because their job isn't to seek the truth about Russia. It's to put Russia down at any cost, and the cost is truth. They're lying about Russia. They know they're lying about Russia, but they don't care.
So I used the phrase mass media a couple of minutes ago. We're so inundated with falsehoods when you put the TV on or you read the newspaper or whatever. Your efforts to bring an understanding to the West of what life is like in Russia, since we're so inundated with falsehoods, how many people do you honestly think will have an aha moment? Oh yeah, that's more realistic.
You know, every journey starts with the first step. And the first step, a journey of 1,000 miles is quite intimidating when you take that first step because you realize you have so much more to go. And as you enter that journey, especially if the first part of the journey is, say, through mountains, through forests, very difficult journey, you're like, holy cow, can I do this? This is impossible. But you keep taking that step forward, that step forward. You keep moving on it, and soon you break out of the mountains. And as you travel, you meet people and you become more comfortable with life on the road. And as you make progress, suddenly you're not 1,000 miles away from the end, you're 700 miles away because you've traveled 300. And suddenly the journey isn't as daunting. And you keep traveling until at the end, you make that final step and the journey's complete. Right now, Cynthia, we're about 100 miles into this 1,000-mile journey, and we're still in the mountains, and it's daunting. There's cliffs that have to be scaled. Um, there's treacherous passes that have to be navigated. Um, and if you look at it from that perspective, it's intimidating, and you're like, why am I doing this? But I know that if I keep taking a step forward, it's going to get easier and easier because more and more people are learning. And remember, it's about connectivity. Okay, I speak with you. That's two people, not enough. But our video is seen by 1,000 people. Say 200 of them absorb the data. And now we're at 202, Cynthia. That's better than just two. And then as we go on, they talk to people and you start to create this critical mass. And by the time this journey's over, we will have millions of people on our side. And we're getting there. We're getting to that point. We have a lot of work to do, but I judge the success of my project by the ferocity of those who oppose me. Cynthia, we're scaring the hell out of people. We are
Really.
scaring the hell out of people. And if we weren't, if our journey wasn't making any progress, they'd ignore us. We'd be nothing. Oh, they're scared, Cynthia. They're scared. So they're attacking us. They're bringing all the tools to bear on it. And this is wonderful because it means that what we're doing frightens them because we're about the truth. We're about undoing the lies that they're telling. And it makes the journey even more desirable. The harder it gets, the more I want to do it because I realize I'm scaring these people. The truth empowers me, the truth frightens them. And it's an amazing thing.
So do you think there's a possibility that you could change the paradigm for 2024?
There's a possibility that we can change the paradigm for 2024. Me by myself, no. I'm just one person. But
Okay.
the project that I've started, there's a lot of people working with me. Understand, when I go to Russia, there is an entire team of Russians that want me to succeed. Whatever success I had in Russia is because that hundreds, thousands of people, millions of Russians support what I'm doing. They believe in this message. So, and we couldn't be doing what we're doing without their support. And when I bring this message back, we start with hundreds of Americans. I think today we're actually at the point where millions of Americans are impacted by our work. Now, we have a lot of work left to do to coalesce these people into a movement that has gravitas that can achieve something, but we are so far progressed from where we were when we started, Cynthia. We have this, your show has had tremendous impact beyond maybe what you realize and the other shows that we do. We are reaching out, we are getting people. It may not seem like it right now, but they're there. And they're starting to coalesce, to congeal, to become a solid. And I think that if we continue what we're doing at the pace and with the effort that we're engaged in, that we can have a meaningful impact in 2024. We can awaken a segment of society so that issues of peace, issues of normalization of relations between Russia and the United States, issues of arms control will be on the minds of people. Whereas if we didn't engage in this project, they wouldn't be thinking about it.
That's pretty profound. Um, so tell people how they could get involved with your film, meaning how could they donate or to your film or whatever else you need to have done?
Well, the film, I mean, again, all donations to the film are appreciated. Right now, because we made a strategic decision not to take the film to theaters, not to seek a theatrical release, that actually is a huge relief on the budget because I made a movie, In Shifting Sands, a documentary about weapons of mass destruction and the drive to war in Iraq. It's a very good movie. Costs a lot of money to make, but it cost a lot of money to get into theaters. There's a whole process that's involved in submitting the film. Then you have to travel, the hotel, the airplanes, and then you show the movie to an audience of several hundred. So you spend a lot of money to expose the film to several hundred people. And then you repeat this, and the next thing you know, your entire budget's gone into promoting a movie, and only a few thousand people are seeing the movie. Um, Whereas if we take that money, instead of allocating it to theatrical release, we use that for the production of the film. Um, we've relieved some of the stress on the budget for the film. We can maximize the value of the donated money, and now we're going to produce something for release. For streaming, millions of people will be exposed to this instantaneously. Um, we we are raising money. I'm not panicked about money about this movie. I mean, if you want to donate money to the movie, please do. And every penny will be used properly. The other aspects of this work, because the movie is just one part of this waging peace campaign. Um, the best way people can support is through subscribing to my Substack, because that generates an income that allows me to do things like travel to this conference, meet these people, to write, to be able to buy time to sit down and write. So if you go to scottritterextra.com, that's my website, you'll see that you'll have a link to the Substack. Now, let me just say straight up, Substack's free. You can subscribe, no money at all. And if that's all you can do, the whole purpose of this campaign isn't to enrich me. The purpose of the campaign is to empower the participants with knowledge and information. And if you don't have the resources to contribute, you do contribute simply by subscribing for free and empowering yourself with knowledge and information. This is the goal. So you're not doing me a disservice if you don't subscribe. You're actually doing what I want you to do. Empower yourself. But if you have the ability to do a monthly subscription or an annual subscription or just a donation, um, it helps tremendously. I can't overemphasize how important it is to to have an income, because if I can't pay the rent, if I can't pay the utilities, if I can't buy food, um, then I can't do this. And we're at the point in time where this is literally, it's more than a full-time job. I'm not complaining, but I put in, they talk about 40-hour work week. I'm putting in, 100-hour work week, or more. All I do is this. This is my life. This is what and I'm willing to do it, but I need your help. I need the help of people to sustain this. So go there if you want to help to the movie, and believe me, we can use the help. Wagingpeace.fund is the mechanism to donate to the movie. Um, but the movie is a standalone project. There's other things that are happening too that aren't sustained by the movie, and we need help across across the board.
So Scott, within the next couple of months, I'm sure we'll be talking about again about the progress of what you're doing.
Absolutely. No, it's a full court press right now. You know, summer is upon us. Uh, before we know it, I know it's winter right now. There's snow on the trees and on the ground, but you blink an eye and it's summer. And if you haven't prepared for it, if you haven't done the work, you're not going to accomplish any goals and objectives that are attached to that calendar date. And so we are, myself, you, everybody involved in this project is, we are in the full court press. We're working as hard as we can, and we're having great success. We speak of people diplomacy. Um, I have an opportunity to organize a trip to Crimea. Um, I call it sort of a scholarship trip of of people who want to go to Crimea and see it. Total transparency. We're not asking for ideologues to come in and promote Russian narrative. We're asking for people with an open mind to come in and see Crimea for themselves, to experience it. I'm involved in another project that's trying to expand the horizons of media outlets when it comes to Russia, to be better informed about the reality of Russia, to retrain journalists into being open to the Russian point of view. So there's a lot of projects going on. They're all happening together, and they all support one another. It's like a campaign. We talk about a battle here, a battle there, but this is a campaign where the battles work in concert to get a culminating moment where they all come together to achieve a result. And the result, of course, is the defeat of Russophobia, and hopefully to create the conditions so that Russia and the United States, instead of pursuing policies that lead to nuclear conflict, pursue policies that lead to peace and prosperity.
So, Scott, thank you so much. You've been listening to Scott Ritter. This is Issues That Matter. And if you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a wonderful day.